They took my name off the invitation, on the day of my own wedding. When I stepped into the hall, dressed in the ivory gown I had spent months choosing, everyone turned to stare. Not with joy, not with admiration, but with silence. The kind of silence that tells you the world has shifted under your feet, and you were the last to notice. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father pretended he didn't see me. And then I saw her. Wendy, standing at the altar, in my place, wearing my dress. Dennis, the man I had spent 5 years loving, didn't look shocked. He looked resolved. He stood beside her with his hand resting gently on her waist, as if it had always belonged there. That moment didn't kill me. It was what came next. When I asked why, they didn't bother with explanations. My father said, "Wendy is the better match now." My mother added, "Don't make a scene." And Dennis didn't say a word. Not even sorry. Not even goodbye. I ran. Not out of humiliation, but out of disbelief. I remember falling down a long marble staircase I couldn't even see through my tears. Whether I slipped or jumped, I'll never know. All I remember is darkness. And then, I opened my eyes. The smell of fresh ink, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of a wall clock ticking. My old bedroom. The calendar on the wall said the wedding was still 3 months away. 3 months. Before betrayal, 3 months before Wendy stole my future. That's when I knew. I had been given a second life, but this time, I wouldn't be caught off guard. I wouldn't cry quietly behind locked doors while my sister smiled for the cameras in my stolen dress. I wouldn't be the pitiful girl left behind. This time, I would take everything she thought she could steal, and when the dust settled, it wouldn't be me crying at the edge of a ruined life. It would be her, because I remembered everything. Every lie. Every kiss behind my back. Every secret. And while Wendy was busy plotting to take my place at the altar, I was already making sure she'd never have a place in the will. Not this time. Not ever. My name is Erica Langston, the elder, daughter of the Langston family, by 6 minutes. But growing up, you'd never have guessed I was older than Wendy. She was the bright one, the charming one, the pretty one. At least, that's what everyone seemed to believe. Where I was quiet, she was loud. Where I was careful, she was bold. And somehow, no matter what she did, she always ended up praised, applauded, adored. We were twins, born into a house where love came second to appearances. Our father, Gregory Langston, ran a high-end architecture firm. Our mother, Clarice, played socialite like it was a career. From the outside, we were the perfect family. Inside, we were anything but. Wendy learned early how to win affection. If she smiled sweetly, she got more dessert. If she cried prettily, she escaped punishment. And when she learned how to twist words to her favor, even I couldn't keep up. I was always the one holding the bag when something went wrong. She knew how to play the victim. I only knew how to stay quiet. Still, I loved her, even when she borrowed my clothes without asking, even when she whispered to our classmates that I cheated on a math test I'd studied all week for, even when she threw tantrums that left me in tears and then claimed I had attacked her. I forgave her every time because she was my sister, my twin. And when you're born sharing a heartbeat with someone, it's hard to stop sharing everything else, too. When we were 15, I started noticing Dennis Rivera. He was 1 year older, son of the CEO of Rivera Holdings. Handsome in that effortless way that didn't require him to try. He was quiet, like me, always observing from the edges. He rarely smiled, but when he did, it made you feel like it was just for you. I used to watch him from across the schoolyard and imagine he could see the parts of me no one else cared to look at. One afternoon, I was standing near the gates after school, nervously clutching a small letter I had written. Just a note, just a confession. I was going to give it to Dennis before he left. Wendy walked past me, saw the envelope, and asked what it was. I said nothing. She snatched it anyway. She read the whole thing right there, and then laughed. "Dennis Rivera?" she scoffed, crumpling the paper. You're wasting your time. A guy like him wouldn't even look at you. She tossed the letter into the trash and walked away. Never gave him the note. But fate is strange. 2 years later, Dennis did notice me. We ended up in the same college prep course. He offered to walk me to the bus one evening, then another. Then one day he asked if I liked classical piano, and before I could answer, he had already bought 2 tickets. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was slow, thoughtful. The way he'd hand me a coffee without asking how I took it. The way he listened when I talked about things I thought no one remembered. The way he held the umbrella over me even when he was getting soaked. He became my first love, and I thought I had become his. After we graduated, our families started to get involved. Our parents were thrilled. It was a good match, both of us. From reputable families, both young and educated, and Dennis's family far wealthier than ours. Still, I believed Dennis chose me because he loved me, because he saw me, because I was the one standing beside him during the long nights when his father was hospitalized, not Wendy. But things began to shift. Wendy returned from Paris after a year abroad, newly glamorous and full of stories. Suddenly, every room she entered became her stage, and Dennis's eyes began to linger. I tried to ignore it at first. I told myself I was imagining things, but I wasn't. I saw it clearly at my own engagement party. She wore a red silk dress and laughed a little too loudly at all of Dennis's jokes. My mother said she was just excited for me, that I should be proud to have such a supportive sister. I wanted to believe that, until I caught them standing far too close at the bar. Until I saw the way her fingers brushed his sleeve as she leaned in to whisper something. Until I noticed how his gaze would drift, not toward me, but toward her. Still, Dennis came home with me that night. He said he loved me. He said nothing would change that. And I wanted so badly to believe him. I pretended not to notice how his phone always had a new password, or how Wendy's lipstick kept showing up on coffee mugs at his place. 3 months before the wedding, Wendy started acting strange. She'd make offhand comments like, "You sure Dennis likes traditional girls?" Or, "You're really going to wear that dress?" Then one day she sat down beside me while I was making final guest list revisions and said, "You know, sometimes I wonder if you even like Dennis that much. You're always so cold." I looked at her, stunned. "What are you talking about?" She shrugged, sipping her wine. "Nothing. Just that he seems to enjoy being around people who know how to have fun. You're a bit dull, Erica, that's all." I wanted to slap her, but I didn't, because I was raised to be composed, because I thought being good would protect me. It didn't. The morning of the wedding, I woke up alone. My phone was full of unread messages, most of them confusing, some apologetic. I got dressed anyway. I arrived anyway. And I saw her, standing where I was meant to be, next to the man who had once whispered that he couldn't imagine a life without me. And my father simply patted my shoulder and said, "It's better this way." No explanation. No apology. They just erased me like I was nothing, but they forgot something. I remember everything. And now that I've come back, I'm not going to beg for a spot in anyone's story. I'm going to rewrite the whole damn book. When I came back to this life, I told myself I wouldn't make the same mistakes. I wouldn't be naive. I wouldn't believe in the masks people wore or the sweet words they used to cover their knives. But I underestimated just how early the betrayal had started. Wendy wasn't wasting time. Within the first 2 weeks of my return, I noticed her circling Dennis again. Every time there was a family gathering or a charity event, she'd somehow find herself seated beside him, laughing, nudging his arm, tilting her head just the way she knew he liked. It wasn't obvious. Not yet. She was too clever for that. But I remembered what came next, and I wasn't about to wait for history to repeat itself. So I did the one thing no one expected. I pulled away. I started canceling our weekly brunches. I stopped texting first. I became quieter. Not distant, but restrained. Polite. I answered Dennis's questions, responded to his gestures of affection, but I didn't chase him the way I had before. I watched him, studied him, and I waited. The space I created made Wendy bolder. I came home one afternoon from my grandfather's estate to find Dennis's car in our driveway. Not unusual. What caught my attention was the sound of laughter floating from the backyard. I walked around the side gate, staying hidden behind the row of tall hedges. There they were, Dennis and Wendy sitting under the pergola, their heads close, together. She was saying something in a low voice, then reaching forward to fix something imaginary on his collar. He didn't flinch. He didn't stop her. My chest tightened. Then she said it. I heard it as clear as anything. You don't have to pretend with me, Dennis. I know you better than she does. He didn't respond right away. But he didn't move either. I walked away before I could hear more. That night, I sat alone in my room, staring at my reflection in the vanity mirror. I didn't cry. There were no tears left for this man. Only silence and plans. The next morning, I went to visit my grandfather. The old man was seated in his garden, a blanket over his knees and a book in hand. When he saw me, he smiled with that rare warmth he reserved only for me. "You've come at last," he said, setting his book down. "I was beginning to think I'd imagined you again." I sat beside him. "Grandfather, do you remember the will you were planning to update last year?" He nodded. "Yes. I told your mother I'd leave the vineyard to you. I never trusted Gregory to manage it. That was his way. He never called my father by anything other than his first name. Their relationship had always been tense. I want you to finalize it," I said calmly. "Soon." He tilted his head at me, watching, carefully. "Something's changed." "Everything," I whispered. "I just haven't told anyone yet." He reached over and placed his hand on mine. "Then we'll make it official. I'll have the lawyer draw it up again." I smiled gratefully, but Wendy must have felt it, some invisible shift. Because that evening, she cornered me in the hallway outside my bedroom. "You're acting weird lately," she said, folding her arms. "Avoiding Dennis. Spending more time with grandfather. What are you up to?" I looked at her, the golden hallway light softening the sharpness in her features. She looked so innocent, so harmless. But I knew better. "I'm just being more careful," I replied evenly. Her lips twitched. "Careful? About what?" "About people who say they love you," I said quietly, "and then smile behind your back while they steal what's yours." Wendy flinched. For the first time, her mask slipped. She recovered quickly, smiling again. "You sound paranoid." "No," I said. "I just finally opened my eyes." She stepped closer. "You really think Dennis is yours?" "I know he was." She leaned in, lowering her voice to a whisper. "Then you should have held on to him tighter." Her words weren't a warning. They were a promise, and that's when I knew. She wasn't just repeating the past. She remembered too. I didn't know how. I didn't understand why. But her words, the way she looked at me, she knew. She had taken Dennis from me once. She had taken my place at the altar. And in the end, when her lies fell apart, she tried to take my life with her. Now she was trying again, but I wasn't the same girl anymore. The following week, Dennis invited me to dinner. A quiet rooftop restaurant. Private, romantic. The kind of place where men propose or apologize. He wore a navy suit, his expression unreadable as he pulled out my chair. "You've been different lately," he said after we ordered. "Distant," I nodded. "I've been thinking." "About us?" "About what love actually means," I said, holding his gaze, "and whether you can trust the person who claims to give it." He leaned back, his brow furrowed. "Erica, I held up a hand. "You don't have to explain. I already know." His lips parted, then closed again. He looked away. Silence stretched between us, filled only by the sound of the city below. "Do you still want to marry me?" he finally asked. I smiled faintly. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you're marrying me because you love me or because you don't want her to win." His jaw tightened. You think this is a game? No, I said softly. But she does. And then I stood up. The wedding was still weeks away. But in my heart, I had already walked away once before. This time, I would decide who stood beside me and who got left behind. Erica had always believed that love, real love, was supposed to be grounding. A place to return to when everything else fell apart. But lately, all she felt was the quiet pull of doubt, tightening like a thread around her heart. She wasn't crying. She hadn't cried once since she returned to this life. But something inside her was unraveling, slowly, silently. Each time Dennis smiled at her now, she questioned whether the warmth in his eyes was for her or just a shadow of the guilt he carried. And each time Wendy entered the room, Erica felt a cold, invisible wall rise up, separating what was real from what was only remembered. She wasn't even sure what part of her was reacting anymore. The woman she used to be? The one who believed in shared futures and promised rings? Or the woman she had become? Reborn in bitterness? Bent on making sure the past never repeated? She didn't want to feel this way. She didn't want her heart to leap every time Dennis said her name, or her stomach to sink whenever Wendy walked too close. But feelings had a way of sneaking past logic. They didn't knock. They didn't wait for permission. Some nights, Erica couldn't sleep. She would sit by her window, the city lights flickering like stars caught in a fog, and wonder if she had made a mistake by coming back. Maybe some things weren't meant to be changed. Maybe love that needed to be watched so closely wasn't really love at all. And yet, she couldn't let go. Because for every lie she remembered, there was a moment of truth too. The quiet evenings Dennis spent beside her while her grandfather recovered from surgery. The way he'd rest his hand on her lower back at crowded events, guiding her gently through. The letters he used to write, handwritten, sincere, full of quiet longing. Did those moments mean nothing? Or had she just imagined them? The way a drowning person imagines land? She didn't know anymore, and the uncertainty was beginning to wear her down. What made it worse was Wendy. Not just her betrayal, but her confidence. The way she walked into every room like she had already won. She was always one step ahead, always acting just enough like a sister to keep suspicion at bay. But Erica knew what was behind those soft smiles. It wasn't love. It was hunger. Wendy wanted everything. Dennis, the inheritance, the admiration, the life she once believed should have been hers. And maybe in some twisted corner of her heart, Wendy even believed she deserved it more, but what cut deepest wasn't Wendy's ambition. It was the fact that Dennis, Erica's Dennis, still couldn't see it. Or maybe he could. Maybe he did see it and simply didn't care. That thought kept Erica awake the longest. She started second-guessing herself. Every word, every action, every glance Dennis gave. Was he looking at her the way he used to? Or was he thinking of Wendy behind that unreadable stare? There was one moment that nearly broke her. She had been organizing charity donations in her grandfather's library when Dennis stopped by unannounced. He looked tired, drawn, like he hadn't slept. They talked briefly, mostly about logistics. For the wedding. It was civil, cordial. But when she handed him the folder with vendor notes, his fingers brushed hers. He didn't pull away. In fact, he looked at her, really looked at her, and whispered, "I miss you." Her heart clenched. For a full second, she wanted to believe it. She wanted to fall into him, to let herself remember what it felt like to be chosen. But then she saw it, just a flicker, a hesitation in his eyes. And she knew. He wasn't just thinking of her. He was thinking of them, both of them, of who to choose, of what looked best, of which story made the most sense in the end. And Erica was done being anyone's choice between two options, so she stepped back and said nothing. That night, she sat with her grandfather, helping him sort through old family ledgers. He handed her a photo, one from her childhood. She and Wendy were sitting under a tree, matching dresses, holding popsicles, and smiling wide. Hard to believe those two girls grew up. he said with a soft sigh. Erica stared at the picture. One of them did, she whispered. He looked at her carefully. You've been carrying something heavy, Erica. She hesitated. Do you think it's wrong? To want justice, even if it means hurting someone you once loved? Her grandfather didn't answer right away. Then he said, Love doesn't erase consequences, but revenge can steal your peace. Be sure of your reasons. She nodded, but the I words only added to the ache inside, because she wasn't sure anymore what her reasons were. Was she doing this to protect herself, or to win? To prove Wendy wrong, or to prove herself right? All she knew was that she couldn't stop. Not now. Not after remembering what it felt like to fall and have no one catch her. Not after watching her sister smile while she bled, but even as she planned, as she laid down steps like chess pieces across a board, a part of her still longed for peace, for quiet, for a world where love didn't come wrapped in suspicion. She couldn't afford to feel that way. But she did. And that contradiction was the hardest part of all. Because Erica wasn't just fighting Wendy. She was fighting herself. It happened the night Dennis's father announced his early retirement. The Rivera family hosted a formal dinner to celebrate, inviting close business partners and relatives. Erica arrived alone, wearing a sleek, soft, blush peach gown with her hair pinned elegantly at the side. She'd grown used to walking into rooms like these, rooms full of people who smiled at her with perfect politeness, but kept their real thoughts tucked behind champagne flutes. Wendy was already there. She stood beside Dennis, laughing softly, with his aunt, her hand gently resting on his arm like it had always belonged there. Erica watched as Dennis leaned toward Wendy to whisper something. Whatever it was, it made her giggle, and rest her head briefly on his shoulder. Erica didn't flinch. Not outwardly, but she felt it. Something low and sharp twisting deep in her chest. The real twist came when Dennis's father raised his glass and cleared his throat. Tonight marks a turning point, not just for me, but for this entire family. I've decided it's time to hand over control of Rivera Holdings to the next generation. Everyone applauded politely. Effective next month, he continued, Dennis will be named executive director. And as tradition goes, the next phase of Rivera legacy begins, with not just a new leader, but a new family. Erica's breath caught. She turned her eyes to Dennis. He didn't look surprised. Then his father added, We'll formally announce the engagement at the spring gala. And that's when it hit her. No one had told her about a spring gala. No one had mentioned any formal announcement. She looked at Dennis. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Wendy. The applause around the room swelled. It felt like white noise. Erica stood perfectly still, her spine straight, her expression unreadable. But inside, everything cracked. Dennis's mother approached, arms open. Isn't it wonderful, dear? A double celebration, his promotion and the official engagement. Erica blinked. I'm sorry, she said quietly. What? Engagement? The smile faltered just slightly on the woman's face. Why, yours, of course. But Erica knew better. That wasn't what she meant, because in that moment, she saw it clearly. Dennis wasn't going to choose. He was going to let his family do it for him. He was going to let appearances dictate his future. He was going to let Wendy win without even saying her name. After dinner, she found him alone on the terrace. The city lights sprawled behind him like stars fallen from the sky. You knew they were going to say that, she said. Dennis turned. I tried to stop it. I told them it was too soon. Erica folded her arms. Too soon to announce our engagement, or too soon to correct their assumption if they meant her. He hesitated. That was enough of an answer. I don't know what's happening between you two, she said, voice calm. But I won't stand in a room full of people and let you pretend to love me while you smile at her. He stepped forward. Erica, it's not what you think. Then what is it? She demanded. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like history is repeating, and I refuse to live it twice. He was quiet. She stepped back. You let them rewrite our future. You didn't even ask me. I was trying to protect you, he said softly. From what? The truth? No. From everything else that would come after it. And that was the problem, because Dennis was always trying to be diplomatic, to keep the peace, even if it meant sacrificing her in the process. Erica looked him in the eyes. You're not the man I thought you were. She turned and walked away before he could stop her. As she stepped into the elevator, Wendy appeared beside her, smiling sweetly. Rough night? She asked, feigning concern. Erica didn't respond. Wendy leaned closer. You know, he used to talk about you all the time when we first met. Said you were thoughtful, steady, predictable. But lately, I think he finds you hard to read. The elevator doors opened. Wendy stepped out first. Before the doors closed again, she turned back and said, Don't worry, I'll make sure they spell your name right in the press release. Erica stood frozen, watching the doors slide shut. She wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to beg. She was going to make sure that when they sent out that press release, it would be her name they had to correct. Erica didn't sleep the night. After the Rivera dinner, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning through every second of Wendy's smirk, every word Dennis didn't say, every carefully orchestrated move that had led to this moment. And then, as the sky lightened, to a pale gray outside her window, something inside her clicked. Enough. No more watching. No more waiting. If Wendy wanted to play this game again, then Erica would show her exactly how it ended this time. She rose early and drove straight to her grandfather's estate. He was already in his study, sipping tea and reading the newspaper, with a pair of wire-rimmed glasses perched low on his nose. When he looked up, she didn't wait. Finalize the transfer, she said, steady and sure. Move the vineyard under my name. And I want the documents for the shares in Langston Interiors drafted as well. Her grandfather blinked, then nodded slowly. You're ready then? I was born ready, she said. I just forgot for a while. By the following week, the legal paperwork had been filed. Quietly, thoroughly, and without anyone's knowledge, especially not her parents, who had always treated her like a placeholder in the family tree, until Wendy came home wearing Parisian perfume and an entitled smile. But Erica didn't care what they thought anymore. Not when she held the deeds. Not when the company her father had nearly run into the ground now legally belonged to her. And certainly not when Wendy walked into the Langston boardroom 2 days later, expecting applause for securing Dennis Rivera's heart, and instead found the room staring at Erica. At Erica. I'd like to introduce the new majority shareholder, the legal counsel announced. Wendy's heels clacked to a stop. Erica stood, calm and unshakable, in a crisp ivory suit. Effective today, I'll be serving as chairwoman. The color drained from Wendy's face. What is this? Our grandfather's final gift, Erica said softly. Wendy looked at the older man seated at the end of the table. You gave her everything? He sipped his tea without looking up. I gave it to the one who proved they could protect it. Wendy turned back to Erica. You think this changes anything? No, Erica replied. I know it does. Wendy stared at her for a long moment, then turned and stormed out, but that wasn't the end. That night, Erica received a message, an unknown number. Meet me. Now. Before it's too late. She almost didn't go. But something about it didn't feel like Wendy. It felt heavier. She arrived at the Rivera family's private estate where Dennis had grown up. The gate was open, the house lights were off. The only illumination came from the pale blue glow spilling out of the side garden. She followed it and found Dennis, waiting. He stood near the edge of the koi pond, dressed simply, his tie loose, his hair unkempt in a way that looked real. Finally real. I thought you wouldn't come, he said. I almost didn't, she admitted. He nodded, stuffing his hands in his pockets. I know what I did, or what I didn't do. I let them speak for me. I let her get close, and I didn't stop it when I should have. Erica didn't say anything. I'm not proud of that, he went on, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I couldn't leave it like this. I need you to know the truth. She raised an eyebrow. You mean there's more? He took a deep breath. Wendy came to see me, the day before the dinner. She said she remembered. Erica's heart stopped. Remembered what? Everything, he said. From before. From the other life. She didn't explain how, just said she woke up with this clarity, and that she wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. Erica's breath came shallow. She remembered too. Dennis looked down. She told me she still had the ring. What ring? The one I gave you, he said quietly. In our first life. Erica froze. That ring was buried with me. She took it, Dennis said. After your funeral. The air between them hung heavy, silent. She said it belonged to her now, he added, because everything you had was always meant to be hers. Erica swallowed, hard. She's not just repeating the past, Dennis continued. She's trying to erase it. And you let her, Erica said, voice flat. You let her twist everything. You stood there and let her stand beside you while I watched the man I loved disappear. He stepped forward. Erica, no, she said sharply. You don't get to do that. You don't get to show up now and ask for absolution. He stopped. I waited for you, she whispered. Even in death, I waited. And you chose her again. Dennis's face crumpled. I didn't choose her. I froze. I didn't know how to fight the life everyone else had already picked for me. That's the difference between us, Erica said coldly. You freeze. I burn. They stood there, breathless, the past clawing at their heels. Then he did something that shattered her resolve. He pulled a box from his pocket. Not the ring Wendy stole. A new one. I had it made, he said quietly. For this life. For you. Erica's hands trembled. Don't. I'm not asking for marriage, he said, opening the box. Inside was a delicate gold pendant, shaped like a flame. I'm asking you to remember who you are. Not for me, for you. She stared at it. Then slowly she took it and closed the box. Wendy can keep her ring, she said. It won't save her. Dennis exhaled. And this, she added, slipping the box into her coat pocket. This isn't forgiveness, it's a reminder. He nodded. I'll take it. Erica turned to leave. Before she walked away, she looked over her shoulder. You want to make it right, Dennis? Yes. Then stand beside me, she said, her voice low, when the will is read next week. Let the world know I am the one who was never meant to be forgotten. His reply came soft, certain. I'll be there. As she walked back to her car, the wind bit at her cheeks, but she didn't shiver, because for the first time in either life, she was in control of the story. No more betrayal, no more waiting, no more silent suffering. She would not only rewrite the ending, she would be the one to sign it. The morning of the will reading arrived wrapped in a crisp breeze, the sky painted in a pale blush that matched the silk blouse Erica wore under her cream-colored coat. Her heels clicked across the marble floor of Langston Law offices as if each step were driving a nail into the past. The past she had buried. The past she had rewritten. She was not here to seek justice. She was here to own it. The Rivera family. The Langstons, a scattering of legal representatives, and even members of the press filled the large conference room. At the far end, Dennis stood waiting by the window. He wore a charcoal suit, his tie slightly loosened, eyes focused on her the second she walked in. He didn't smile. He just nodded. Wendy was already seated. She wore a stark white dress, too bright, too clean. Her hair curled perfectly around her shoulders, but her eyes were restless, shifty. Hands folded tightly in her lap, nails digging into her palm. She looked like she was ready to receive her crown. And Erica? She was ready to snatch it from her hands and crush it underfoot. The attorney stepped forward and opened a thick envelope. "This is the final will and testament of Mr. Edwin Langston," he announced. "Signed and witnessed 1 month ago. This supersedes all previous versions." The room quieted. Erica felt Wendy stiffen. Following are the distributions of Mr. Langston's estate and holdings. The names were read out. Distant cousins received heirlooms. Charitable donations were acknowledged. Then came the part that would change everything. "To my granddaughter, Erica Langston," the attorney read clearly, "I leave full ownership of the Langston Vineyard estate, the adjoining property, and my 60% majority share in Langston Interiors. She will serve as the executive chairwoman with immediate effect." Gasps echoed softly around the room. Wendy sat frozen. Her mouth fell slightly open. No one said her name, not once. The attorney continued, "I am also transferring the rights to my private collection, including manuscripts, stock options, and financial trust accounts, all to Erica. For one reason, because she protected the things I loved when others sought to ruin them." Erica did not flinch. She didn't smile. She simply let the words wash over the room like a tide swallowing everything Wendy had ever wanted. Wendy shot to her feet. "This is a lie!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "This isn't real. He was manipulated. He was sick. She did something. She poisoned his mind." The attorney remained calm. All of this was signed under witness, reviewed by medical examiners, and notarized in accordance with the law. This will is final. Wendy's face turned red with fury. Her father tried to quiet her, but she slapped his hand away. "You think you've won, don't you?" She spat, eyes burning into Erica. "You think this makes you better than me?" Erica finally spoke. "I don't need a will to make me better than you, Wendy. You did that on your own." Wendy's jaw trembled. "I was always supposed to have it all, the marriage, the wealth, the family name. You were just the shadow?" Erica cut in coldly. "Funny. You're the one standing in my light now." Security entered the room quietly as Wendy's voice rose again. "Dennis, tell them this isn't right, that you don't agree, that I was meant to be." But Dennis didn't move. He didn't say a word. He just looked at her with something that resembled pity, and then turned his back. Wendy's breath hitched like she'd been slapped. And that was it. She broke. Sobbing, screaming, she shoved past the guards, her heels slipping on the polished floor as she stormed out. The press outside would devour her. The cameras would capture her breakdown. And the headlines would write the truth. Erica Langston, the woman who rose from betrayal and claimed what was hers. The room cleared slowly after that. People came to shake Erica's hand. Some did it out of duty, others out of awe. She accepted them all with quiet grace. Only Dennis remained behind. He approached her as the final papers were being collected. "You were incredible," he said softly. "The way you held yourself. You didn't flinch once." "I've had 2 lifetimes to prepare," she replied. He nodded. "I meant what I said. I want to stand beside you. Not behind you. Not over you. Beside you." Erica looked up at him, the corners of her mouth gently lifting. "Then stand with me now, Dennis. Not because you regret what happened, but because you believe in what I've become." "I do," he said without hesitation. And for the first time, she believed him. They walked out together, side by side, past the cameras, past the noise. But the story wasn't over yet. 3 weeks later, news broke of Wendy's involvement in corporate theft and breach of contract. Erica's legal team had discovered falsified transactions, forged invoices, and bribes that traced back to Wendy's short time at Langston Interiors. The company's board voted unanimously to ban her from all future dealings. Her name was blacklisted across every major firm in the city. No one came to defend her, not even her own parents, who quietly tried to distance themselves once the headlines turned brutal. Wendy went silent. She disappeared from events, from parties, from relevance. Erica didn't pursue her further. She didn't need to. The world had a way of punishing the wicked. All Erica had done was stop protecting them. A year passed. The vineyard blossomed under Erica's guidance. Langston Interiors opened its first international showroom in Paris. Her grandfather's name became respected again. And Dennis, he never left her side. He didn't rush marriage, didn't push promises. Instead, he showed up every day, steady, present, real. And one quiet spring morning, as they stood under the flowering trees at the vineyard, he finally knelt, not with a ring, but with an open palm. "I don't want to own you," he said. "I want to build with you." Erica looked at the man who had once been a symbol of her pain, and now stood as proof of her growth. She placed her hand in his. "I've already built myself," she said with a quiet smile. "But I'll let you walk beside me." They kissed beneath the soft rain of petals. And from that moment on, Erica no longer looked back, because the past had already been buried, and the future, it belonged to her now.